inside the house and I saw Joan, and I'm sorry, I just panicked. And I shot and killed her. And I went down the hall to what used to be my bedroom. And I saw John, her son, was in what used to be my bedroom. And I'm sorry too, but I shot and killed him.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of a man who took two lives of people who were very close to him. This happened all the way back in 1984 when he was just 17 years of age. Because of the new laws that were passed, he now has a chance at parole. With that, let's jump.
Aaron Hauser, DOC number 105642, first class offender. Parole eligibility date 7/6/2008. Not eligible for good time. Sentenced to life, first degree murder. Does that sound correct?
Yes, sir.
That was on 4/26/1984. Would you answer Mr. Jones's question, please?
Good afternoon, Mr. Hauser.
Hello, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. I'm Victor Jones, parole board. Ask you a few questions. Mr. Hauser, how old are you now?
55.
55?
Yes, sir.
And you were how old when this crime committed?
17.
17. Okay. So you've been down now on what, 37?
Almost 38 years, sir.
Almost 38 years. Okay. Tell me a little bit about your life prior to this crime committed. What's going on with you that led up to what happened? What happened?
Well, you'd like to know what happened?
Well, not leading up to the crime. Leading up to the crime.
Well, my parents had a kind of a really stressful divorce, and I went back and forth between my custody of my mother and my father, and then back to my mother again. And it was a variety of reasons. I was kind of in a really dark place in my life at that time. I lived with my parents until my parents divorced when I was about 10. Originally, my mother got custody of me. She took me, and through the courts sometime later, my father got custody back of me again. By the time I was probably 12, I ran away from home to get away from my father, and my mother got custody of me, and we moved to Kerrville, Texas, and where I was at until my arrest.
Okay. Did you finish high school?
No, sir. I did get a GED.
What grade you went to in high school?
The ninth was my last grade in school. I quit school when I was.
You got your GED since you?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. You got your GED since you've been incarcerated?
I got my GED before I was arrested.
Before you arrested. Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Of course, you were 17 when this happened, so you were not working anywhere or anything.
No, sir, not with a regular job.
Okay. What did you do after you got your GED? I see you had some military, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You struggled because of what was going on with your father and mother, that divorce and everything. Did you seek counseling or anything during that time? You had any counseling or anything?
No, sir.
No, nothing to try to help you work through that situation.
No, sir.
How about drugs? Any drugs involved?
No. No, sir. I always tell people that I never had enough money to want to make the drug man rich.
Any drugs?
Sir?
Okay, so never used any drugs. You never used any drugs.
No, sir.
Okay, alcohol. How about alcohol?
Now, I'm sure I had tried alcohol before as a teenager, but no, not on any regular basis.
Okay, now the day of the crime. Let's talk about the crime a little bit. You were living in Texas with your mother, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what happened? What led to you coming to Louisiana to commit this crime?
Well, before I answer, if I can, I'd like to specifically apologize to the Leidig family, because I know that answering some of these questions is going to be really painful for them to hear it. And I want to say how sorry I am. But as the board knows, I had a co-conspirator in this matter who was 26, and the two of us left Texas with the intent on coming to Louisiana with the intention of burglarizing my father's home.
Okay.
We drove to about a mile or so from my father's residence, and we waited in a shed outside of the house until my father left. I had talked with my sister a few weeks before that, and she was under the impression that my father and his wife were having some type of marital problems of some type. I knew that she used to have a black car with a white top, and the car was not there that day. So after my father left, the two of us approached the house. I went inside the house and I saw Joan, and I'm sorry, I just panicked. And I shot and killed her. And I went down the hall to what used to be my bedroom. And I saw John, her son, was in what used to be my bedroom. And I'm sorry too, but I shot and killed him.
Okay.
I went back and I got a couple of the coins from a coin collection that was there, and I got in my father's car and drove back to where our vehicle was at, and I went back to Texas.
Okay. You went there to burglarize the house, but you armed yourself before going to the house. You armed yourself. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And I've asked myself that over the years, why did I have a gun? And the only thing I can ever come up with is that every time you turn the TV on, that's what people do when they get ready to burglarize some places. They have a gun. And at the same time, I'm 55. I'm 55 years old today. I can't justify anything that I did when I was 17. It was something so senseless and stupid that I could have just turned around and ran away if I didn't have a gun.
That's right.
And again, I'm so sorry that.
And this was your father's home. And if you'd gotten caught, I mean,
Yeah.
but anyway, so now, since you've been incarcerated, what have you done? What kind of jobs have you had since you've been incarcerated?
Okay, when I first came to prison, I was assigned to work in the field. I made 2 cents an hour. We did everything from pick cotton, hoe grass, and that kind of stuff. After about 6 or 8 months of that, I was upgraded to medium security from minimum security. I went to a camp and did a variety of jobs as a orderly. Eventually, I ended up in the kitchen. I worked in the kitchen, all different jobs from washing pots and pans. Eventually, I made my way to a cook's job, and I stayed at that job until 1992 when I made trustee. When I made trustee, I had a variety of jobs too. I drove tractors, I cut grass. Eventually, I was accepted into the Louisiana Technical College vocational program, which was a cooking school. And from there, I had a variety of jobs. And then eventually, I ended up at what's officially called the C.C. Dixon Canine Training Center, where I'm at today. At one point, I was accepted into the Louisiana, the Automotive Technology School. I took 6 of the ASE certification tests. I passed the tests for engine repair, electronic systems, manual transmissions, automatic transmissions, engine performance, and the HVAC program.
Any disciplinaries or write-ups?
I have 1 write-up since my incarceration.
That's remarkable. Remarkable. I have to say, it is remarkable. I don't have anything else, Mr. Chairman.
Marabella?
Mr. Hauser, my name is Tony Marabella. I have a few questions to ask. I've reviewed your file. I've reviewed your report. I reviewed all of the support letters that you have. It sounds like you've done a remarkable job while you've been in prison. Of all of the courses that you've taken, of all of the programs that you've taken, is there any particular program or class or anything that you've taken that has really stuck with you and perhaps helped you understand what and why you did what you did?
Well, yes, sir. I can say, for one thing, the Victims Awareness Program, which was part of the 100 hours pre-release course, meant a lot to me. It forced me to take a different perspective, something that I had never thought about before. But of all the programs that I've taken, I don't believe I've taken one that I didn't get at least something out of it.
And you've been a trustee for how many years?
Almost 29 years. I made trustee in 1992.
And you've worked with the canines, is that correct? How long were you with them?
Yes, sir. Well, I've been at that position off and on a couple of different times. For example, about 11 or 12 years ago, I was working there, and when the whole Miller-Montgomery issue came out, it put me in a little bit better of a light. So about 7 years ago, I had the opportunity to leave, and I went to the automotive technology school, where I got 6 of the National Institute for Automotive Service Excellence exams passed.
Mr. Chairman, can we hear from the warden or someone there?
Yeah, Warden, you got a comment for us, Warden?
Yeah, he's absolutely correct. He has one write-up. Been knowing been housing for quite a few years, and he has been in the dog pen, and he actually volunteered to leave the dog pen so he can go and get them classes. Very calm and demeanor at all times. Anything you ask him to do, he does. And he, like I said, he's in one of the most trusted places is the dog pen. He's been there off and on since he's made trustee. Talked to a lot of the people around here, and nobody has anything bad to say about him as far as since he's doing his time here and been here a long time, and everybody has high regards for him. One write-up in all these years since 1984 is just unbelievable. I couldn't believe when I read it just a minute ago. So, like I said, our job is to put people in places that we trust, and the dog pen is one of the most trusted places. That he's been there off and on for quite a few years and never left because of a problem. Just left at his own. We needed him somewhere else, or he wanted to go to school, so it was easier for him to live at main prison to go to that school, and then he'd come back after he finished. And so that says a lot about him as far as in the prison itself.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions that I have.
Okay. All right, now we'll hear from Mr. Andrew Hunley.
Andrew Hunley with Louisiana Parole Project. Obviously, we're here today because of the Miller and Montgomery rulings. Aaron is parole eligible because the U.S. Supreme Court and in turn the Louisiana legislature recognized that individuals who commit crimes as children are worthy for consideration for a second chance. And after 38 years in prison, Aaron has proven that at the age of 55, he's not the same person he was when he was 17 years old. A couple things that I'd like to point out that were among Parole Project's consideration in taking on Aaron as a client. As the warden stated, the dog pen is an extremely trusted position at Angola. It cannot be overstated. There are only a handful of people in a prison that holds thousands and thousands of people. There is only a select handful of prisoners who work at the dog pen. I can tell you that the dog pen is not necessarily a place every prisoner wants to work at Angola because it is a layout job. It is a very tough job that requires a lot of work. There are many prisoners at Angola who would not work at the dog pen because there's a connotation working at the dog pen that you're assisting law enforcement because you're training dogs and taking care of dogs that are used to catch prisoners who are escaping, to catch fugitives that local law enforcement and sheriff's departments use to apprehend that. Teddy has never had a problem with that because he enjoys the job. And, you know, he does, I say all that to say that you do not have a man in front of you who has some sort of anti-authority or anti-law enforcement attitude. His work over the last several years has aided Angola security staff and local law enforcement agencies. The other thing that's very clear today, I think this board can compare Aaron to the multiple cases you heard before today, even multiple cases you heard this week. There is a clear distinction in looking at Aaron versus every other person that came before the board. He clearly has the best disciplinary record. He clearly has the best work record. His institutional accomplishments are exceptional, and I think that should be pointed out. But also, this board has a standard that it has adopted in looking at juvenile lifers. Obviously, not every juvenile lifer who has come before this board has been granted parole. And this board, as we saw earlier today, this board knows that when they see someone who has achieved that growth and maturity that's worthy of a second chance. And when we compare Arison, oftentimes, and I'm going to use the Supreme Court's verbiage, they talked about the worst of the worst. In some cases, the worst of the worst shouldn't even get consideration. Aaron, when considering his record since he's been incarcerated, he is among the best of the best compared to other juvenile lifers, including those who have been released. Parole Project obviously works with almost every juvenile lifer who has been released over the last several years in their reentry. And, you know, I can tell you that Aaron is among the best, even those who have been released. And obviously there has been no recidivism among Miller Montgomery juvenile lifers who have been released over the last several years in Louisiana. As far as our reentry plan, our reentry plan for Aaron would be for him to live in our residential reentry program. We recognize where the crime was committed in the opposition to Aaron's release. What we have spoken to Aaron about is a reentry plan that would prohibit him from going west of the Mississippi River. He would reside in Baton Rouge. I should point out that where Parole Project's housing is located in Baton Rouge, we're supervised by the West Baton Rouge District. So the one caveat I would present to the board if he's released and the board agreed to that reentry plan where he would never go west of the Mississippi River, the one exception is for him to see his parole officer, whose office would be in West Baton Rouge. Aaron obviously has agreed to that. We have a job lined up for him in Baton Rouge, utilizing the skills that he has learned at the dog pen. Our plan would be for Aaron to be with us long-term, several months to over a year, to the point he has employment. He becomes self-sufficient. We would assist him getting his own apartment at whatever time he reaches that level, and we would continue to provide him counseling and peer mentorship. Obviously, with all Parole Project clients, Aaron will receive a mental health and substance abuse evaluation. If he were to be released to our program, we would ensure that he follows all those requirements. In addition to that, as you know, we work with helping our clients who have served long prison sentence learn technology skills, learn life skills, learn social skills that will allow them to be successful. Our goal is to ensure that our clients do not go back to prison. And we feel very confident based on Aaron's institutional achievements and his record over the last several years that he will be successful just as individuals who do not have as impressive a record as he who have gotten second chances, have been successful. We have no doubt Aaron will be. I want to assure the board that we are mindful of the ripple effect of his crime and the opposition, and we would work to ensure that he never goes to the area where the crime was committed, and he can restart his life in another area in the Baton Rouge area. Thank you very much.
Right now, we're here from Mr. Peters. Okay, you good now? Go ahead.
Hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
All right. First of all, thank you. And first of all, I want to say to the victims' families, although I've lost several members of our families, that being a born again believer, we want to express during this process. I know it's a tough process for everybody and all the parties, but we want to express our remorse in all these transactions today for their losses and just having to go through this process all together. Because even though we've lost several family members ourselves, I just cannot imagine what they're going through, having to deal with bringing all this up again. Then obviously, Lori and I are here to support Aaron. So, but I do want to put that on the table to begin with. First of all, I do want to thank the board so much for allowing us the opportunity to speak on Aaron's behalf. And I know y'all have copies of both of our letters, so I'll make this brief. My background with Angola started in August of 2008 when I was delivering the championship rings to the winning Crunch Bowl team back then. And I spent 3 wonderful days on the farm. But everybody kept telling me, you got to come back. You got to come back in October to see the greatest rodeo there is. And so I got home, told my wife and her parents. And so by the time October rolled around, I had to rent an extended van to put all of our family, relatives, and friends and everybody in to make the trip back to Angola. So we get there, and before the rodeo starts, I wanted to take them to the dog pen because I'm a dog lover and she's an animal lover. And I wanted to show them how talented these dogs were with all their individual skills and all. All of them have a distinct job of how talented they are. And so we get there, we hop out of the van, and all the dogs start barking and howling. And then this guy comes walking out of the house, and I'm thinking, oh my God, we're in trouble. And he very politely comes over and introduces himself as Aaron and asks us if we want to tour the dog pen. Everybody's excited. And so we're into this tour about 20 minutes, and we realize this guy's an inmate. He just made a tremendous impression on everybody. So before we all left, we're all exchanging addresses back and forth. And I'm sure Aaron thought, he may get 1 or 2 letters and then, we'll all just forget about him. But Aaron didn't realize, he just doesn't realize how special he is. And so 12 and a half years later, everybody's still exchanging letters back and forth. And Lori and I have been back every October to the rodeo. Now we're bringing different people with us every October to see the rodeo. They want to see the rodeo. Lori and I go back every October to see Aaron. And of course, we're living here in North Central Texas. But I've got family and relatives in and around Lafayette. So every Easter, there's a big family reunion. And before 2009, it was just kind of hit and miss whether or not we went. Well, since 2009, we hadn't missed a single family reunion. What we do is show up on Thursday night of Easter weekend, and then we spend all day Friday, Good Friday, up at Angola visiting Aaron. And then the Saturday and Sunday, we'll go back to the family reunion. So up until about a month ago, we just kind of assumed that if and or when Aaron is granted parole, that he would just, come to Texas to live with us. And well, about a month ago, we understand that if and or when he's granted parole, that he's going to stay in Louisiana. And it may be a year and a half, 2 years, or whenever, if he ever gets to come to Texas. But so now we understand that our role is just one of being patiently supportive, no matter where he is. So, and as y'all are aware that Aaron finished first. I mean, he finished top of his class in his automotive certification courses. So if and or when he ever comes to Texas, he's got a choice of jobs waiting on him, either at Classic Chevrolet here or at Mike Brown Ford, where I know both the owners, or if he doesn't want to pursue his automotive mechanic career, he can come work for me at Balfour, where I've been a man short ever since COVID hit. As far as living arrangements, until he gets on his feet, we've got a fully furnished apartment here above our garage that has both a outside access and inside access, so he can have as much or as little privacy as he wants. My mother-in-law just recently bought a new used vehicle, so now she has 2 vehicles in her garage, and one of them has Aaron's name on it. If he's not going to be in Texas anytime soon, we can bring one of the vehicles to Louisiana once he gets his driver's license. But before my 3 minutes is up, I want to give my wife the rest of it. And but before that, I want to say just again, thank you for allowing us this opportunity to share our thoughts and experiences with such a super and wonderful guy named Aaron.
All right. Thank you.
And thank you, thank you, and thank you.
All right. You want to make a brief statement? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Now we'll see. We'll hear from,
Right, I believe she did want to make a statement.
okay, you want to make a brief statement? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Cut off.
that's okay. Good afternoon to all the board members. Good morning, Aaron, and good morning or afternoon also to the opposing side. You heard about how we met Aaron, and he and I probably have 300 letters or more that we've written over the last 10 or 12 years, and I've really gotten to know him, and over the years, we've come to, he calls me mom and I call him son, and we just feel like he's part of our family now. And we really hope that y'all will grant him parole. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous.
It's okay.
I did get a little brief note from him this morning. I'd like to just read it just to show you. He's never asked us for one thing in the whole 12 years, 13 years that we've known him, but he's always so appreciative. And it just says, "Good morning, Mom. I want to send a few lines to say I've appreciated all the love and compassion you and Rob and your parents have shown me over the years. You need not worry about me if things do not go in my favor today. I won't be bitter or mad. I'm still the same man I am this morning. I'll continue to try to be someone I can look in the mirror and be proud of who I am today." And he's always so forgiving and patient. He's even taught me patience and to give people the benefit of the doubt now. But anyway, that's all I really wanted to say.
All right. Thank you so
for letting
much.
me speak.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right, now we'll hear from Mr. James.
Thank you, board members. I'm Jimmy Lestage. I'm the DA in Beauregard Parish. I am here with the family of the victims in this matter, who are also victims, who were promised years ago by the state of Louisiana that we'd never be here on a day like this. First of all, we do think this hearing is premature. We do have a petition for writ pending with the United States Supreme Court, asking them to reinstate our district court judge's well thought out and very lengthy opinion as to why Mr. Hauser should not be subject to a parole hearing ever. He is the worst of the worst. And regardless, we're here today. So thank you for letting us address the board. And I would point out, first of all, on page 2 of the guidelines that I think the parole board was given, I think it's dated October of 2020. It discusses factors that should be looked at regarding people who were sentenced before they were 18 years old. And Aaron Hauser is not one of those people. He was sentenced after he was 18 years old. He committed this crime just days before, 3 months before he was 18 years old. He had joined the Navy. He had been released from the Navy for vision issues, but he had nevertheless joined the Navy, made adult decisions, and was, again, 18 years old when he was sentenced. That sentence was accepted by this family and was proposed by his defense, him, that he would do the rest of his life in the state penitentiary without the ability to be paroled or pardoned, or well, without the ability to be paroled, to take the death penalty off the table. So that's what this family expected. They've lived these years knowing that that would be the case, that he would never have this opportunity. And here we are today to address the opportunity that he has in front of him. So I do want to point out that the day of the crime, the evidence indicates that he was mad that he wasn't able to access money that his dad had for a college fund, and was going to rob or burglarize the house and get the money, apparently. He did plan this crime. It was well planned out. He purchased the gun. He went to the home. He laid in wait until his father left to go attack Joan Hauser and the 17-year-old John Leidick, who will never get a car or a place to live or have a family of his own. He then drank a glass of Kool-Aid before he, went and got in the vehicle, ran back to Texas. He didn't just jump in. He went and got a glass of Kool-Aid out of the refrigerator in the kitchen, and then meticulously went through a safe and gathered a few objects and then retreated from the home. So the state is absolutely opposed to any parole for Mr. Hauser. I do have Ms. Donna K. Kelly here with me, and she would like to address the board if it's the appropriate time, please.
It is. Yes, sir.
Can't hardly see anybody. First of all, I ask you to bear with me. I've never had to deal with anything like this. This has been a long time coming, a day we thought we would never see. I'm the daughter of Joan Hauser and the sister of John Leidig. I'm here to speak on their behalf because they can't speak for themselves. I'm also here to speak on behalf of my family and the friends in the community who knew and loved my mother and my brother. As Jimmy stated, Aaron did plan that. It was well executed. He planned it all out, got everything together, drove over 8 hours to commit this crime. My mother was only 48 at the time, and my brother was 17. He made a choice that day. They had no choice, and he chose to take their life. When he sat out there laying in wait behind a shed and saw his father leave, he could at that point turned around and walked away. But he didn't. He chose to go inside. After he shot her, he shot him. He put a shell in his baseball glove as some type of marking and leave. And as Jimmy said, went and sat down and drank some Kool-Aid like nothing had ever happened. That may sound immature, but the whole planning and driving for all those hours, hiding a car, hiding in wait, that was not the action of someone immature. My mother was pretty much like any other mother. She loved her family. She loved her kids unconditionally. She would stand up for us and do anything for us. She loved to sew. She loved to work outside. She was active in the community and loved to cook. My little brother, which was 17 also at the time, he was a happy-go-lucky, pretty much teenager. He liked to be outside working on with three-wheelers, working with show cows. He was pretty much a prankster, and I had to keep a close eye out for anything that might come up in that accident that he might do. He was never going to have the chance to have any kind of life after this. He was 17, didn't graduate from high school, didn't get the chance to go to college, didn't get the chance to marry, have children, or for us to see him grow into the man he could have been. When he took them, he took so much from us. Our children grew up not knowing their grandmother or their uncle. They weren't there to see us graduations, marriages. They weren't there in the times that we needed them. In an interview Aaron did for Inside Angola, one of his statements was he always wanted to make his mother proud. We do too. And up until the time of the death, I know she was. But there was so much more she could have been proud of over the years of our accomplishments and our children's accomplishments. Aaron spoke just now about being in a victim awareness program and how it made him look at the other side of the story. But someone asked me recently if he had ever enrolled in a victims reconciliation program where he tries to make amends with the family and ask for forgiveness. I have never, today is the first time I've heard him try to apologize or show any type of emotion. In the hearing in DeRidder, there was no emotion when he spoke and appeared no remorse. I'm going to refer back to that interview from Angola. In his statement, that when they asked why he was there, nonchalantly, he said, "I'm here for murdering 2 stepmothers or 2 step relatives." I'm sorry. But then when they went on to talk about one of the dogs that had died, the emotion he showed about burying a dog, which, don't get me wrong, we love our animals, but there was more emotion in that than he showed about the crime he committed. I wonder if after 35 plus years, Aaron would be able to live outside. Everybody talks about the trust he's gained. Aaron lives in a controlled environment. It's easy to learn trust and earn trust in that type of environment. You either go along with things or you're a disciplinary problem. He has learned how to earn the trust because there are repercussions in there. Will he have those same repercussions, and can he continue with that earned trust outside of a controlled environment? We're not sure about that. I don't think he can. I looked into work release programs, and I understand this program Mr. Hudley is doing, but I also know there are other type of work release programs that, due to the nature of his crime, he would never be admitted into those. So if he can't go into that type of work release program, how is it possible that he can go into the public? Mr. Hundley talked about the program he's in, and the Mississippi River would be a barrier. So I just need to know from you how that worked out for my family. He lived over 8 hours away, or at least 8. At 17, he made that decision to get all this stuff together and drive, hide, and do this. If a 17-year-old can make a decision to travel to commit something like this, do you honestly think that the Mississippi River is going to stop somebody from driving 2.5 hours away? I'm sorry, I can't buy it. I don't believe it. It didn't work out for my family. we do appreciate the board having to look at all this. I feel like there are other things to consider. I'm asking, where is your commitment to my safety? Where's your commitment to my family's safety? Do I have to live in fear? Because Aaron has been there, and regardless of what type of nature and how y'all think he is, has that hate grown in him? Because it was a hate. When you walk in and you shoot two people point blank looking at you, that's hate, especially when you have to go down a hall to find the other one. His father, who is no longer with us, testified, and I'm sure you have that he was strongly opposed to Aaron getting out because he had no idea what Aaron would do. Would he come back for him? Had his hate still grown? Aaron wants the second choice, and I'm sure if I was in his shoes, I would too. But my family has no second choice. My 17-year-old brother has no second choice, and my mother has no second chance. I can't understand why I'm here. When he entered that plea and took that sentence, he knew that's where he would be for the rest of his life. I understand laws change. But the only thing that is able to get us through is to know is he is there. That's where he belongs. And we would never have to deal with this, never have to worry. Is he coming back? Is he getting out? Will I run into him on the street or anything like that? We never really expected this day to come. And unless you've ever fully lived with this, you'll never understand. A lot of time, I was 23 at the time this happened. A lot of the specifics were kept from me, I think because I was the only daughter and because of my age. It's so hard to explain to you that sometimes when I see a picture of one of them smiling and it's immediately replaced with the image of what they must have looked like when they looked up and saw him. And what they looked like after the fact. So most of the time that good memory is immediately erased by that. At 23, I've grown up over half my life without my family. If you're a female, you know how much a lot of times you need your mother. I did not have that opportunity to have her. I have an outstanding father and brothers as a support system in families. But sometimes a girl just needs a mom. And that was not going to happen. There aren't days go by that we don't think of them. There are days that we think you can't go on. There are days I think, why are we putting ourselves through this? But you know what? That answer was pretty easy. If the tables were turned, she'd be right here where I'm at. She would not have given up on us, not a single one of us.
Yes, ma'am.
And I truly believe that. In fact, I know that. And if you'd ever met her, you'd know the Cajun in her was a strong fighter. I have to give some appreciation out to our local DA's office. Without them, we could not have come this far. They have helped me restore my faith in the justice system by standing with us on this. I was losing my faith when they passed that, the Supreme Court passed that about the juveniles. But with the help of them here, we have some hope that we won't have to do this.
Yes, ma'am.
We do respectfully request for myself, my father, my brothers, my mother's sisters, all our family, that Aaron's parole be denied.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
All right, Aaron, would you like to make a statement on your behalf? And then we'll go to Ms. Jill to wrap up at the end. That's appropriate for you guys.
Yes, sir. I can only say once again how very sorry I am that all this happened. I didn't understand the value of human life because at that time I didn't value my own life. I took two people's lives. It ruined the lives of the people that loved them, and it effectively ruined my life and even the life of the only person who cared about me at that time, who was my mother. And I'm just so very sorry. I've incurred a debt that I cannot repay, and that's a burden that I'll always have. And if this board so feels that I'm deserving of a chance, I promise you, I will not let you down. And I'm just so very sorry for all the pain that I've caused.
Thank you. And Ms. Jill?
It's actually going to be Miss Flanagan. Who's
Ms.
speaking.
Flanagan, okay, I apologize. One of you guys can wrap it up.
Okay,
All right.
thanks, Mr. Kelsey.
Okay, thank you. Annie Flanagan on behalf of Aaron Hauser.
Okay, you can go ahead and wrap up.
Okay, thank you. Aaron Hauser came to prison as a teenager over 37 years ago. At 17 years old, he made a terrible, tragic mistake. But today, Aaron is the embodiment of what the US Supreme Court had in mind when they decided Miller. If it were possible, he would change his actions from 1983. But knowing that he cannot change what he did, Aaron set about to change what he could. He succeeded. In the nearly 4 decades since his crime, Aaron has strived to make amends by dedicating his life to positively contributing to his community. That he was successful is perhaps best demonstrated by his housing. He started living at the dog pen 25 years ago, which, as y'all know, is reserved for 15 of the most highly trusted, carefully selected individuals in all of Angola. Aaron is deeply committed to his work there. He cares for the dogs that are responsible for security at the facility and are available to local law enforcement, which means he's on call at all hours, as Andrew said. Even faced with a life sentence and no chance of release, Aaron committed himself to self-improvement. He sought educational opportunities and participated in DOC programming. He became a Class A trustee in 1992. Aaron has one single write-up over 34 years ago, before I was born. This is a record that I don't have to tell y'all. As you said, it is remarkable. As his attorney and now friend, I believe Aaron is exceptional. But officials within the Department of Corrections who've known him much longer than me agree. They've described Aaron as devoted, respectful, dedicated, highly trusted, and a decent man at the core. Former Warden Burl Cain recommends Aaron for parole, saying that he is rehabilitated and that the Department of Corrections has accomplished its purpose of correcting deviant behavior and preparing Teddy for release into society. You heard from Miss Donna on behalf of the relatives of Joan and John Leidig today. Their pain is palpable, and it is entirely understandable. They have lost loved ones. Aaron insists that they are entitled to feel however they may about him. He knows there's nothing he can do to change what has happened in the past and the pain he has caused. His actions over the past 37 years have been his attempt to atone for this pain that he brought to the family and the local community. Miller represents the promise that a child who has committed the most serious crime can change, and Aaron Hauser is the promise of Miller fulfilled. Aaron's success in prison demonstrates not just that he has matured from the 17-year-old who committed this tragic crime, but that he is now a skilled, rehabilitated, 55-year-old man who is ready to re-enter society and support himself. We're joined today by Department of Corrections officials, Aaron's family, and a loving community of supporters in humbly asking that this panel grant Aaron Hauser's application for release on parole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Panel prepared to vote?
And actually, we go in the executive section, Chairman.
We have a motion for executive session.
I'll second.
Second, roll call, please.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Marabello.
Yes.
Okay, it was a nearly 8-minute executive session, which is on the long side. We're going to go listen to the verdict, and then we'll read the court documents around this case. Let's jump in. Kind of looks like I'm in the call, right? Let's try it again. Let's jump in. I wonder if
All right, we're back. We're back. Panel prepared to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Tony Marabello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hauser, in reviewing your record and listening to all of the things that have been presented here today, in listening to everyone, I'd like to start out by saying that I certainly understand and can't imagine what the family of the victims in this case have gone through. To have suffered the horrible crime that was committed to them, and to have to live with that all of these years, especially the way that's been described here today, clearly understand that. And in addition to that, to believe that when this case was resolved years ago, that would be the end of it. I do understand that. And as a parole board member, if I had the power to bring back the victims in this case by denying parole, I would do that in a split second. That's not my role here today. The law has changed, even though it appears that life without parole was what was going to happen in this case. Everyone has very different roles involved in this process. And Mr. Lestage, as the district attorney, I compliment him and understand how hard he's fighting for the victims in this case. That's his role. I was a judge for a long time. When I was a judge and I had to sentence someone, my role was to determine what this person was entitled to receive as a result of the crime, and what they were and what they've done and what the circumstances were of the crime. Now I'm on the parole board, and that's a different role. And that role is for me to determine and take into account the crime as well. But my role is to determine who is it that's before me today that I am determining whether or not should get paroled. And that's what my responsibility and that's what my job is. And after listening to all of the evidence and seeing the excellent prison record that Mr. Hauser has achieved, the lack of disciplinary issues that he has had, the fact that he is a trusted inmate, that he has the support of all of the prison authorities, and the very positive things that the warden has said about him, as well as his transition plan. It's my vote today to grant his parole under the following conditions. Number one, he is to enroll in and complete the Louisiana Parole Project program. He is to get a substance abuse evaluation and follow whatever treatment is recommended. He is to get a mental health evaluation and follow whatever treatment is recommended. He is to not have any contact whatsoever with the family of the victim in this case. He is to perform 6 hours of community service work per month. And he is also, and I think it was brought up by someone who's I'm not sure about. We do not, I think it was Mr. Hundley. We do not want him going west of the Mississippi without permission from his parole supervisors. So that would be my vote, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I also vote to grant your parole today based on all the information that's stated. Again, this is a difficult case that they all are, and have such compassion for the victims and for the victim's family. But based on the information that I have today, based on the interview, I would vote to granting with the same stipulations. I would add that he would report to his parole officer weekly for the first 60 days. And again, I vote that way because of the excellent disciplinary, good programs, positive institutional record, low Tiger score, and comments about the award, positive comments of the award. Mr. Jones?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my vote will be the same as I'm voting to grant also for the same reason misstated.
Right, you have 3 votes to grant your parole today with the stipulations as stated. Do you understand the stipulations?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
3 votes to grant stipulations as stated to grant. Parole's been granted. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pretty fitting that they stopped at the full image here of his supporters. I cannot. I just don't have a tolerance for supporters that have the audacity to address the victims. And I mean, he must have addressed the victims 3 times, both of them, including stating how many times I have lost loved ones myself. I know what it's like. I have lost loved ones myself. Are you out of your mind? How dare you? I just don't understand it. You know, we all it's like there's a pattern with these with these. They just seem like these whack jobs. There's something off about them when they come in and support evil, like a double murderer. But you know, you want to come and support them. It's like, fine. You know what? That's your own business. But you're going to do it when the victim is across the table from you, when the victim is there to say, don't let the person out. For you to get up there and make a statement like that, I know what it's like. I've lost loved ones. Address the victims. I'm sorry, victims. Like, what did they even say? Weird. And then they go on this rant. Whenever they also say, I'm going to keep it brief. You know, it's going to go a long time. And it went, what did it go? It felt much longer than it actually was, but it went for 4 minutes. It went about 5 minutes and 20 seconds. And it was supposed to only be 3 minutes. You know, when he's like, oh, before I go over my 3 minutes, I'll give it to my wife. And at that point, it was like 4.5 minutes. I mean, it's just bizarre. And then, of course, whenever you're done hearing about this ridiculous statement, you then have to hear from the victims. And let's keep in mind, he was nearly 18 years old. Like, they keep talking about this bill that passed that's supposed to allow those who are under the age of 18 to not serve life, to make it illegal. And they did go. There was a whole lot that went into this. As the DA had mentioned, there were appeals about whether he should get a second chance, and they were fighting it in court. But eventually, the governor just said, "No, he was under 18. He was under 18." And it's, you know, when I don't believe when these laws are passed that they were thinking about a 11-month-old who commits a double homicide, that they should be let out. And as the victim stated, you know, when he gave his speech about killing two people, it was nonchalant. Even in this speech, he said, "I didn't understand the value of human life." And it's like, are you kidding me? That's what you say all these years later, 35 years later. You don't understand the value of human life. You hide and wait, and you kill a 17-year-old stepbrother and your stepmother in cold blood. Then you sit down, you have a Kool-Aid, and you don't understand the value of life. Now you do. But he was able to articulate his remorse for losing his dog. And man, there's something wrong. But again, what just gets me going is when you have one of these advocates that come up there and give these ridiculous, long, winding speeches where they actually have the audacity to address the victims, tell them, I know what it's like. And it's like a story about, well, we went into there and he showed us the horses, and well, we thought he worked at the prison. Wow, he's such a great guy. What? Oh, man. You know, this case kind of reminds me of the case I covered on Mandu too, if you don't know, of a second channel, and covered a case about a boy who killed both his parents. And the governor commuted his sentence after only serving like 17 years. And then now he wants a second bite of the apple. He wants to get pardoned. He wants so that it's not even on his record. And the reason he gives for wanting to be pardoned is so he can coach kids. If you can imagine that, having your kids being coached by someone who killed both of their parents. But we live in a weird, upside down world, and where it seems that those who commit the most vile crimes have more rights than even parents who just want to put their kids in the safest place. This is the news that came out right after his parole hearing. And, you know, it was on July 4th, 1983. He was 17 years old when he killed his stepmother and his stepbrother. And by the way, his father did not want him out. If you can imagine that, you would think his father would have a say, right? After a dedicated and thorough investigation of the Parish Sheriff's Office, he pled guilty to 2 counts so that he would avoid the ultimate punishment, the chair. So he was given a life sentence. He was ruled the worst of the worst, who committed crimes as a juvenile that can be sentenced to life in prison, possibility of parole. After a lengthy hearing, they so this is just talking about like the whole appeal process. But it was denied. And then Richard provided a lot of information. So it shows in 2018 where there's the judges ruling against him, then in favor. It was a big thing in court for quite some time, trying to make it so that he wouldn't qualify, you know, because of his age. He was basically 18. And like I said, he had joined even the you know, he's making adult decisions. But okay, whatever. Let's go read this. Now I have to figure out how much of this we're going to read because it's 45 pages. And we can't read all of that, of course. So also the victim's speech, when he started, Mr. Kelsey started to like interrupt her. She did speak for 12 minutes, which is more time than they typically give. Although usually if she's the only speaker, she'll get 9 minutes if you're getting technical about it. So, but it was a good speech, in my opinion. So Defendant committed first-degree murders of his stepmother and her son on July 4th, 1983, with the help of an accomplice, William Kincaid. And I wonder if... No, we don't have him in our spreadsheet. So, defendant was born October 13th, 1965, making him 17 years, 8 months, and 21 days old at the time. Defendant's parents separated in 1977 when he was around 12 years old, and his sister Robin was 14. Custody was granted to the defendant's father. Defendant testified that he went to live with his mother, then to get away from his father. The next year, the defendant's parents agreed to transfer his custody. George testified that he saw no future with the defendant in his home. Well, we can see that there's a rift over there. As an agricultural worker, George worked from daylight to dark and sometimes more. Francis was the children's primary caretaker before the separation. When the children were little, George read books to them. As they got older, they would watch television together. The children grew up just like any other typical farm kids, sometimes going fishing, performing a few minor chores. Although George was not a lovely, dovey man, he had appreciation for his kids, and most children liked him. The children played and visited with their cousins who lived nearby and participated in schools, parties, 4-H club activities. Defendant was just a normal kid. So they're trying to paint the picture of what his family life was like, and it seems to be that it was kind of a typical, 1970s farming type thing where the kids didn't really know their father much. You spent time with George or Francis's cousin or some other kids. Every 2 years, a family visited Francis' family in Maryland, and other years, a family vacationed at various places around the country. The divorce became final in 1979, and they agreed to transfer custody of the defendant's sister, Robin. The defendant said Robin asked to live with Francis because George did not want her anymore. He said George put all of Robin's things in garbage bags and put them out in the attorney's parking lot. I don't know is that his daughter? Defendant and Francis rented a trailer and brought Robin and her things back to Kerrville, Texas. George described the defendant as the average kid. In relation to his performance in school, George did not whip the children, but he disciplined them with lectures. He did not consider the defendant to be a troublesome child. He thought the defendant wanted to live with Francis after the divorce because she babied him. George did not think the children ever feared him. George had limited contact with his children. I don't know why they're going so much into his father, but I guess it's they're trying to paint a picture as to what kind of childhood he had. George had limited contact with his children once they moved to Texas with their mother. They saw each other when George would go to get him, and they didn't have funds to run to Texas. Still, he testified that he saw them about every 2 weeks. However, the defendant testified George never called or wrote the children after they went to live with their mother. Let's skip ahead because we just don't have a lot of time. I think we have the picture painted already that it was a bad situation, a broken home. Maybe he didn't feel loved by his father. But remember, he killed his mother and his stepmother and his stepbrother, not his father. So George would have helped him get some kind of more decent life. He wouldn't have enlisted in the Navy, and the assault wouldn't have happened. Okay, wait. I don't know. Let me pause this and read through it real quick. Okay, we're jumping ahead here to a statement. Mr. Kincaid gave a statement on the day of the homicides in which he said the defendant had been upset about 3 weeks before when he asked his father for money from a trust or other type of fund. George would not give him the money. Mr. Kincaid later agreed to go to Louisiana with the defendant to pick up some of his things. In Kerrville, they planned their trip to go to Beergard Parish as a robbery. The defendant asked Mr. Kincaid to accompany him to take things his father had that belonged to him. He specifically mentioned education money that the defendant thought George had. They purchased surgical gloves so they would not leave fingerprints. Prior to the trip, the defendant paid for guns Mr. Kincaid purchased in his name because the defendant was underage. So, I mean, there was no reason, again, to bring guns. You're robbing your father's house. Like, it's just stupid. The pair left Kerrville on a Sunday evening in Francis' pickup truck. But it is interesting, as Mr. Jones said, well, at the beginning, they barely asked him any questions at this hearing. But he's like, well, why did you even, it was just your father's house. But you can see that his father and him had a terrible relationship. So anyways, the pair pickup truck and arrived. Francis was out of town and attended a relative's funeral. They parked the vehicles in the woods and left the truck with the defendant and Mr. Kincaid's carrying flashlights they had purchased in Kerrville. There's a lot of K's in here. The defendant carried a .223 caliber Mini 14 semi-automatic rifle, and Mr. Kincaid carried a .357 revolver. So they got a heck of a lot of firepower for this robbery. Pretty ridiculous. They waited in a shed near the house until daylight. The defendant took the Mini 14 and led Mr. Kincaid under a fence and through a barn until they got close to the house. They saw a man leave the house and the defendant went inside. When Mr. Kincaid waited outside for the defendant, he heard gunfire and a woman scream. He fled the scene to a nearby house and reported a shooting to the parish sheriff's department. So his co-defendant was smart enough. I mean, that's interesting. He immediately went and told on his friend, and that's probably why he didn't get much time at all. That's pretty interesting. He didn't expect anything like that to happen, but meanwhile, he went there with guns. Why go there with guns? The defendant testified that he did not see Joanne's car at the house, and he thought no one was home. He wanted to retrieve a rock collection George would not let him have, and a small coin collection. I mean, it's all of this over nothing. However, the defendant said the main reason was to let him know that, that I hurt, and that I felt like he hurt me a lot when I was a little kid. So why bring the guns? The defendant opened the door on the side of the house, still armed with the Mini 14, and saw Joanne there. He said he just was overcome with emotion, and he went into the house and shot her. He then walked down the hall to his former bedroom and saw John in his bed. The defendant felt that was still his bedroom, and he was upset to see John here. He shot John in the face and the right arm. John's body was found in his bed with his covers pulled up over him. No blood was found on the outer cover, suggesting the defendant covered John after he shot him. I mean, when you think about that, he really was just a kid that was hurt. But I guess he's a kid that was hurt that's also a psychopath. I don't know. I don't know how you go into a house and kill people like that. It's just, and then it's just so it's just so bizarre. A cellmate of defendant gave a statement saying the defendant told him about shooting Joanne and John and robbing the house. Defendant told his cellmate he then found a pitcher, this is the famous Kool-Aid, in the refrigerator and drank it. Defendant admitted to his cellmate that he originally said Mr. Kincaid had murdered the victims. So he blamed it on his co-defendant. Another cellmate gave a statement saying the defendant told him he wanted to get back at his stepmother and stepbrother for what they had done to him when he was little. The defendant described the shootings to him and told him how he had found some money and took it, drank some Kool-Aid, took the car, and left. The cellmate said the defendant laughed the entire time he told the story. Now, I mean, you got to take whatever statements Sally mates say with a huge grain of salt, because they're just motivated to lie, but it does sound true. After the murders, defendant looked around the house for his collections, focused on wanting his things. Texas authorities arrested the defendant in Caryville later in the day. In the vehicle, he and Mr. Kincaid had taken the D. Ritter. They seized gold and silver coins, a mini 14 semi, and you could probably verify it, right? Like, the Kool-Aid thing is so unique, and if the police had found an empty bottle of Kool-Aid in the house, I think that's the verification you would need. So, 14 semi over ammunition, pair of surgical gloves, and other items that George later went through the house. He said gold and silver coins, paper money, savings bonds in his name, and a savings passbook were missing. She was shot, they say, twice in the right cheek and the right eye. Or the right cheek through the eye, and then also the chest. He was shot in the head, just below the right eye. It's just, is that his father? George's stepchildren, Joe and surviving children, agreed to life sentences without parole. George believed the defendant would never be a protective citizen. He had not communicated with the defendant since the murders because he had no interest in associating with somebody with that frame of mind. Although the defendant wrote to George a few times during his first year or two at Angola, he never asked for forgiveness or apologized or anything. There you go. I mean, it's like a kind of a trend of this guy who just doesn't seem to care. It's just saying that seems like a sense of certain type of evil. It's not, you heard it, you see it here in the court documents. You heard it at his commutation hearing, where at his parole hearing, where the victim referenced a speech he gave in Angola. So it's like there's multiple and he never apologized at this hearing. It's like there are multiple touch points where we keep hearing the same thing, where it seems that he does not have remorse. So I think we have enough to know the crime. I'm going to put this link in the description. I can't go on forever because it's just, it's going over the details. We've been here an hour and 18 minutes. But thank you, Richard, for sharing the information. It's like, I know it's been a long time and all that stuff since he did the crime, 6 years at the time of that hearing. But man, it's hard. It's hard. It's real hard when you have the victims that also are so still just shooken up over it. Yeah. With that, I'll let you go.